Hello, Swami.
Hi. Hello.
Welcome to Livsenergi's interview channel.
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
We are very happy to have you, since you are the author of our first yoga book in this book club called The Cleansing Power of Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
That's your book. That's one of your books. You have written many books, right?
Yes, I've written about 5 books under my own name. Yes.
That's
And,
fantastic. And,
mhm.
and they have been sold to different countries, right?
Yes, they're translated into, I'm not sure how many are in Swedish. I think some of them are,
At least,
but I know Dutch, German, Spanish, a lot of other languages as well.
that's fantastic. You're an
Uh-huh.
international known yogi and meditation teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I've been teaching for quite a while. Yeah, I've been teaching for quite a while, and then I thought to share with a wider audience because you can only meet a certain number of people in person, whereas your books have infinite possibilities.
we are very happy for that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk a little bit about your yoga life, but we will start in the beginning of your life. So we'd like to get to know you a little better. And if I understand correctly, you had quite a little tough start in life, right? Getting polio at a very young age.
Yes, I was sick as a child. I'm from New York originally. Now I live in London, but I was sick when I was about 4 years old, and I was completely paralyzed for about a year. And the doctors told my parents I'd never be able to walk. And my mother used to say she thought the reason I could walk was that I was too young to understand the doctors. So I just kept trying. And I think as a child, I was quite protected because my parents were always afraid I would fall and hurt myself. But when I went to university, I had to do some kind of physical exercise. It was required. And I started doing that. And I found it made me feel so much better. And then when I finished university, I went to live in Florida and was looking for some kind of physical exercise to do. And I found this ad for a yoga class. And of course, in those days, no one knew what yoga was. And I just thought, okay, I can try this. And I found it helped me so much that I've been doing it for quite a while now.
I mean, when you started yoga, that must have been in the 70s or something?
No, I started in 67.
So what was the view on yoga at that time?
Well, there wasn't really a view. No one really knew what it was.
What
You know,
fascinated you about it?
sorry?
What fascinated you about yoga? What made it do to you?
Um, well, it just sort of brought me in contact with my body because I think having been paralyzed, I was a little disconnected from it. And I always tended to walk on my toes, so I wasn't really a very grounded person. Whereas when I started to do the asanas, the physical exercises, I found that it brought me down to earth and enabled me to connect with the earth more. And it enabled me in general in my life just to focus better. So I think that was the main thing.
I mean, it was polio that you had when you were a child.
Yes.
I mean, can you really? My grandmother had polio also, and she recovered as well. She was
Uh-huh.
half paralyzed. But when you are paralyzed, can you, from a medical standpoint, be free from that and heal without, I'm looking for, did your own power, your inner power, have more to do with the healing, you think, than the actual everyday life?
Well, I think, they say that every muscle in your body has a line of pull and it works in a certain way. So when some muscles are destroyed, you can make other muscles take over for it. But I think it takes like a lot of, as you said, willpower and practice.
Mm. And
So I think, yeah, you can overcome a lot of what doctors think you can't. And, you know, they say nerves don't regenerate, but I think that's not entirely true. I think if they're stimulated enough to regenerate, they will start to. You might never have the full power of them, but you can be functioning, totally functioning.
how do you think that this event, if you can call it an event, has affected your view on life?
I think when you go through a difficult time and you sort of come through it, and then the next time you have a difficult time, you have the attitude, well, I've had problems before and I worked them out. So you sort of have that attitude towards life. Whereas I think people who don't have problems early, they think everything's going to be handed to them.
If it wasn't for your disease, you may not have been introduced to yoga. How did you meet yoga, and what was it that caught your fascination?
Well, at first it was just an ad in the newspaper. I was looking for some kind of exercise to do, and I saw this ad for a yoga class, and it said, you know, this new kind of exercise that's coming from India. And I just thought, well, I'll try it.
So at first it was the practice, the exercise that you came into.
Right, right. Yeah, so I started with the physical exercise, which is the way I think most people start yoga. But then I started to get more interested in the meditation and also the philosophy. And I think I've always liked philosophy also. And I've always been interested in how the mind works. When I was at university, I started off majoring in psychology. So I think I've always been interested in that.
Is that your your diploma from university? Is that in psychology?
No, actually, I only did that for a few years. And then I found that rather than really studying the mind, I found that a lot of psychologists, they just study, they tell you how to design studies and prove different points.
Oh.
But I felt that it wasn't really studying the mind. Whereas when I started to do yoga, I found that there's really only one mind you can study, and that's your own mind, because science is about direct observation, and you can only observe your own mind directly. So I think when I started doing yoga, I I started to watch my own mind. So I ended up changing my major in university. So I have a degree in, I have a BA in literature, comparative literature, but I also have a master's degree from the University of London in traditions of yoga and meditation.
You have dug deep into the yoga world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What is yoga to you? If looking at your life, you know, today and past, what is yoga to you?
Well, I think it's two things. One, it's the experience I have when I'm practicing or when I'm sitting for meditation, which is an experience of a very peaceful experience. But I think on the more practical level, I can say yoga is the techniques, the things that I do to try and help me to have that experience. You know, the things that I learned from practicing different things that help me to be more peaceful in my life. I say yoga is a way of life, really.
I agree. I love yoga too. You call yoga the science of the mind. Is that correct?
Well, I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that the yoga that a lot of people think is just physical exercise, I think that's a very limited understanding of yoga. Whereas I think it is that, plus it's also a study of the mind and how to make the mind peaceful and how to go maybe beyond the mind to become that experience of peace.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But it's not all. But it's not only for people who need to find peace. Would you say?
Well, I think everyone needs to find peace.
Mm.
I think if you don't find peace, how can you be happy in life?
Mm.
And I think that's really the goal of life, that it's what we're all looking for is happiness. And the difference is people think they're going to find it in different ways. But I think really we were just all looking to be happy and to be peaceful.
And yoga is a way to our tools. They give us tools to how to listen to your mind and calm down and
Right.
turn your vision inwards, right?
Mhm. And I think yoga has tools, a lot of different types of tools. Like some people, maybe they're more active in their life, so they want to focus on the physical exercise. Whereas some other people are more indrawn. They want to focus on the meditation. Maybe other people, they're more emotional, devotional types. They like to chant. So I think yoga has like a lot of different types of techniques.
Our audience, many of our readers, are not into yoga yet, and
Hmm.
never will. But I actually choose to launch this book in Swedish because I believe it has a lot of important things to teach us, whether we are interested in yoga or not. But I'd love for a broader audience to understand that yoga is so much more than asanas and the physical practice. What would you say about this, if you also considering the content of the book?
Well, I think that this book is not just for people who are already practicing yoga. This is for all modern people who live in modern cities or a modern environment. Um, our air is polluted, our water is polluted, maybe our food has a lot of impurities in it. Um, so I think things are not as we would like them to be. So we have to make ourselves so that we can deal with this. So that's why we need to cleanse our own bodies. And that's why we called it the cleansing power, because there is a portion of yoga giving us these different cleansing techniques. So I think, even if you're not already doing yoga, you can take some of these techniques, and some of them take only maybe a few minutes a day, but they have great benefits. For instance, one very common practice that I put in the book is a practice called neti, which is cleansing the nasal passages. So, like anyone who takes public transportation, anyone who goes into a shop or works with other people, especially at this time of year, someone else is going to sneeze. Someone else has a cold or maybe is even sicker. Um, so you can, you're breathing that in. So this is a way to get rid of those impurities that you've breathed in. I live in London, and sometimes I have to take the underground train at rush hour, and there are probably 200 people in the same car with me, and at least one of those people has a cold.
Of course.
So I can't ban that person from taking the train, but I can clean my own body so that maybe their cold doesn't affect me. So that's why I think this is a book for the general population, not just people who do yoga.
These cleansing techniques, I mean, they're in many ways they're ancient wisdom in the yoga philosophy.
Mhm.
Would you say?
Yes, I think they are quite old. Um, and I think some of them have been sort of handed down, and some of them maybe have been forgotten a bit, but they're very applicable to modern life.
What can we achieve with inviting those techniques and methods into our lives?
Well, I think we can lead a healthier life in society. And maybe once we have our own health, then we can maybe start to change things in a positive way. If you don't have your own health, you can't do anything.
And that
So
health is not only physical, right?
I think you have to start with getting your own physical and mental health. And then whatever it is you want to do in life, you can achieve better.
I heard that you have been practicing asanas, the yoga positions, every day for many, many years. But now you have to
Uh-huh.
focus on just kriyas and breath work.
I think I focus on them. I still do some asanas.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it's important because I'm a writer and I sit at the desk a lot. So I think in order for my own health and flexibility, I've got to do some asanas. So I don't practice as extensively as I did, but I still practice a bit. But I do focus on the meditation, the breathing exercises, and also I do the cleansing exercises on a regular basis.
Do you do them every day?
The cleansing exercises? Yeah, yeah. Just like people brush their teeth every day, I brush my teeth and then I clean my nose. I do neti afterwards. So I've made it like a routine, and then it becomes easier to do. I think if you make positive habits in your life, it's just easier to remember. You don't have to remember to do them. You just do them.
It's funny. I had a session with an Ayurvedic consultant a couple of years back. It's quite many
Yeah.
years, actually, and he introduced the tongue scrape to me.
Hmm.
So that's my part of the cleansing techniques. I've been doing the tongue cleaning every morning, every night for many, many years.
Uh-huh.
That's
Right.
also in the book. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I do that every day as well. Yeah, because people don't realize how many toxins the body throws out through the tongue. I think if anyone goes out and maybe you have a few drinks and you're not feeling so well in the morning, just open your mouth and look at your tongue in the mirror and you'll be amazed at what's on it. You see, it's the body trying to cleanse itself using the tongue. So when you scrape the tongue, you help speed up that cleansing process.
That's good to know. It's actually
Mhm.
quite evident when you look at the tongue the day after. What other, if you were a beginning, if I was a beginner, what would you recommend me start doing to have a daily cleansing routine?
Well, I would say the tongue cleaning every day, and then I do oil pulling. I don't know. This was quite popular in London last winter. So you just take oil. Now, the adverts were mainly for coconut oil, which I find is too cooling. So in the winter, I think it's not a good idea to use coconut oil, but I use sesame oil. And I just put a big tablespoon of oil in my mouth, and I sort of move it around for about 20 minutes. And when I say 20 minutes, people see you had a reaction where, oh no, I don't have 20 minutes. But while you're doing that, you can be doing other things. So I do it first thing in the morning, and then I just move the oil around in my mouth while I make my bed and get my coffee ready and, do other things, and then I spit it out and then I brush my teeth and then I do neti. And I find that's a very simple routine and it doesn't take more than an extra 2 minutes in the morning to do all of that.
So you do, if I just put them in the right order as I heard them, or maybe I
Mhm.
forgot. So it's first the oil pulling,
First, the tongue cleaning.
first the tongue cleaning, then the oil pulling, then the brush, toothbrush,
Toothbrush, and then neti.
neti, and that's lukewarm water through the nose, right?
Yeah, and salt. You have to use salt. I
Yes.
think a lot of people try to do it without salt and they find it's quite unpleasant. because your body is a saline solution. So you have to bring the water to the same solution, the same saltiness as your physical body. And then there's no discomfort in it. So I think, sometimes people hear about something, but they don't really do it properly. And then they think it's an uncomfortable thing. So that's one reason that I wrote this book, to give you maybe the correct way of doing things that you might have heard about.
And having the tools to try it out and not make a lot of fuss about it. Your name is Swami Saradananda.
Saradananda. It's like I always tell people it's the S in sugar.
Sugar.
Saradananda.
It's a very beautiful name.
Thank you.
Is that your birth name?
No, it's the name my teacher gave me. So Swami is actually, even though I use it as my first name, it's actually a title.
Oh.
So it means that I've taken certain vows. Like in the West, you have monks or nuns. In India, there are swamis. And all swamis end their name with Ananda. So Ananda means joy or bliss. And so my actual name is Sharada. And Sharada, which is a name I love. Yeah, it's a name for Saraswati, who in yoga tradition is the goddess of music, art, wisdom, knowledge.
So Shara is then part of your second name, your yogic surname.
Yeah, my actual name is Sharada, but then Swamis add on Ananda. It's the technically my name means the joy of connecting with music, art, wisdom.
That's lovely.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for explaining that.
Uh-huh.
So in India, there's a lot of swamis.
Yeah.
Who is your teacher?
Well, my teacher is no longer alive, but he was a man named Swami Vishnu Devananda. So he died in 1993, so quite a while ago.
What did he mean to you and your yogic life?
Well, I think he was my teacher. He taught me how to live a healthy life. He taught me he gave me the techniques for finding inner peace. Right? He used to say, always value the teachings and don't be fixated on the teacher. I know a lot of people nowadays, they become fixated on their teacher, and he used to just say practice. And he'd really encourage people just to practice, not just to study and be able to repeat things back, but to really practice. I think that was his main goal in life, was to get people to practice.
That goes for everything in life, right? It's not just in the yoga teaching world. It's it's me as a person who has to live my life and not listen to everyone else, but to interpret what we hear, what we see, and do it ourselves.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I see yoga as being, in a way, it's like a scientific experiment. And maybe this is why they say the science of yoga, because a scientist doesn't go into a laboratory and just start doing things. A scientist has a working hypothesis. So I think all the teachings we hear, all the books we read, that's a working hypothesis. But then we have to go into our own laboratories, which is our own physical body, our own minds, and put these techniques into practice, and then start seeing if they really work and how they really work. So I know for my own self, I found that a lot of these ancient techniques really do work. And so this is why I wrote the book, to sort of share this with people, things that I found have worked.
Yeah, and we're so happy that you are doing it, because it helps us. move forward.
Uh-huh.
Do you feel
Right.
that you belong to a specific yoga tradition?
Well, I do, yes. I think I belong to, a lineage. I have a teacher who had a teacher who had a teacher. So but I go to India, and I go to also, when I go, I study in different places. So I don't think that being in one tradition precludes, studying with other people, other things.
What
But I
I'm
think
what I'm
it's like one focus, yeah.
what I'm looking at is that in the Western world, we tend to throw names and lineages of yoga um, towards each other when we discuss yoga. Well, I do hatha yoga, or I do ashtanga yoga. And many times talking to people from India, they don't really care so much about these differences.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yes. And I think in the West, there's a misconception word hatha yoga, which, nowadays it's the easy yoga you do in the health club if you don't want to do Ashtanga yoga. But really, anyone who does physical exercise is doing hatha yoga. Ashtanga yoga is really a kind of one school of hatha yoga.
And it doesn't really matter what you practice, because yoga is so much more, right, than the asana practice.
Yeah, but I think as long as you practice and not just talk about it, I see it as being, it's like tools. You can go out and buy an expensive set of tools and put them on your wall and show your friends, but they don't do you any good. Or you can buy like maybe a simple hammer and build something very beautiful. You're spending £1 or €1, but the tools have to be put into practice.
I have a few short questions, just quick ones. We could do them as the last part of our interview.
Okay.
So, do you have a life motto that you live by?
Well, maybe my teacher's teacher was a man named Swami Saradananda, and he used to have a saying, simple living and high thinking. I think that's the way I'd like to live.
Simple living, high thinking. That's a good one. What is high thinking to you?
Well, I think it's maybe thinking about, what do you want out of life? I mean, what's really the goal of your life? And many people confuse the means with the goal. I think it's thinking, I'm thinking about what will really bring you peace.
Do you have a family with you in London?
No, because Swamis don't marry. I have brothers, sisters, all living in the US. So I go there about once a year to visit.
What about your hobbies next to the yoga, philosophy, and the practices? What do you like to do?
I like to read novels. I like to travel. I guess those are the main things.
Do you have a hidden talent that we don't know about?
I'm not sure.
You can think for a minute.
uh, yeah, yeah. I'm also very interested in herbs, and the effect of herbs. And actually, before I became a yoga teacher, I had a herbal business in New York. Is that a hidden talent? Yeah. So I make a lot of my own things.
What kind of things?
Well, like I have a wonderful eye wash that I make, and I wash my eyes every morning. Or,
That have a cleansing
yeah,
thing?
yeah. So I've actually put that in my book.
Oh, nice. That's your own one.
So I think I've had an interest in that for a long time.
What are the ingredients in the eye cleanse?
Well, it's a herb called eyebright and witch hazel and rosewater.
Nice. And you mix it all together with a little with the rose water, and then you pad your eyes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. I will try it.
Mm-hmm.
So herb, and what is it in the herb area that you like? Is it the healing effects, or is it just the closeness to nature, or what is it?
I don't know it, but it's the idea that plants have so many properties that we don't really consciously know about. You know, like everything we eat has different properties. So I think it's sort of looking at that and how to really connect with it in a positive way.
I love herbs. Just looking
Mhm,
at them, they're so vital and so full of energy. And if they don't get
mhm,
your attention, they fade very quickly. So you have
mhm.
to be there and you have to see them. You have to tend to them.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to dry them on, obviously. So, Swami Saradananda, I would like to say thank you for this moment with you.
Mhm.
I think we had a lovely chat, and I hope
Yes.
that many people would like to read your book and learn all the wisdom that you have for us in store.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for bringing the book out in Swedish so that more people can read it and be influenced by it and maybe help themselves in their own lives. So I'm looking forward to seeing it when it does come out.
Yes, and you will certainly. You know, I have a good contact in Norway that launched some of your books in Norwegian, and they've
Uh-huh.
done so well there. So I am quite sure the Swedish audience will appreciate them as well.
Mhm.
Super, thank you, Swami.
Okay.
Enjoy the day in London.
Thank you.
Bye bye.